I want you to picture something. Imagine you have a friend. You've known them for a while, you hang out, but then the dynamic sort of shifts.
Okay.
And this friend starts telling you what food you're allowed to keep in your fridge. Like you actually have to check with them before you buy milk.
That sounds exhausting.
It gets worse. They also decide which gas station you have to use. And they want to, inspect the new alarm system you just bought for your house.
Right.
And the real kicker, they basically act as a gatekeeper for your other friends. If they don't approve, you have to cut people off.
That doesn't sound like a friendship at all. It sounds like a, I don't know, really toxic, controlling relationship.
Exactly. And that's the scenario we're diving into today. Except we're not talking about two people. We're talking about the recent India-U.S. trade framework. We have a really fascinating piece of analysis here that argues this whole thing is not the diplomatic victory it's been made out to be.
It's a heavy topic because it really pushes back against the official story. Usually the headlines are all about partnership, growth, that kind of thing.
Right.
But the document we're looking at today, it sees this framework as a potential threat to national sovereignty.
It's pretty blunt about it, isn't it? It frames it less like a handshake between equals and more like a situation where one side is, well, dictating the terms.
Yeah.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Is that true? We're going to unpack the difference between a deal and a framework, look at the strange economics of almonds versus textiles, and then get into the really controversial stuff.
Like the monitoring of oil.
And the cultural side of what we're all eating for breakfast.
And we should probably start with the name, because in diplomacy, the words they choose they're not just fluff, they're definitions.
Right. There was immediate confusion when this all broke. He has Donald Trump on social media calling it a trade deal, explicitly.
But if you look at the official statements, the joint release, that phrase is gone.
Complete.
The official term is framework. And that is a huge, huge distinction. A deal means contracts, dates, specifics. It's binding. A framework is looser, much looser.
The analysis we're using has this great analogy. It's like planning a road trip.
Right. So imagine we've all decided we're taking your car. And I'm bringing snacks, you're driving, we're all excited.
Sounds good so far.
But we haven't picked the dates, we haven't booked a single hotel, and we haven't actually put any gas in the car.
So it's an agreement to plan the trip, not the trip itself.
Exactly. The text calls it an agreement to intent to commit. It's a promise to start negotiating, which leaves, a ton of room for interpretation.
And when things are vague, the stronger party usually gets to define the terms later on.
Precisely. Look at the specific language they use. Preferential market access in sectors of respective interest. It sounds so balanced, doesn't it?
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
But the two markets are completely different. I mean, since the 91 reforms, India has opened up almost every sector. We're a pretty open market.
We've always been protective of agriculture and dairy, though.
Correct. But now look at the U.S. There's this myth that it's a total free-for-all, but it's not. It is incredibly rigid. They protect their sugar, dairy, agriculture with extreme strictness, not to mention defense, semiconductors, shipping.
I mean, just try taking a mango into the U.S. in your carry-on. You'll see how open they are.
Exactly. So you have a negotiation between one country, India, that's already opened its doors wide, and another, the U.S., that's historically very, very good at keeping its doors locked. The starting line is just not equal.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty then. Even if it's just a framework, they've outlined some goods that are actually going to see tariff changes. What's moving across the ocean?
So under this, India has committed to lowering tariffs on some specific American agricultural products. We're talking animal feed, tree nuts, soybean oil, wine, and spirits.
Tree nuts, so almonds and walnuts, basically.
Yes. And honestly, if you live in a major Indian city, this isn't exactly new, right?
Oh, not at all. I feel like every Diwali hamper I've gotten for the past 5 years has had a big bag of California almonds in it.
Right. The marketing machine's been in overdrive for years. Influencers, cricketers, you name it, they've been pushing American nuts for a long time. So the products are already here. This just makes them cheaper.
But there's a phrase in the agreement that the analysis points to as, like, a potential Trojan horse. Additional products.
That's the real fear. It's so vague. And the anxiety is that this opens the door not just for, raw fruit, but for processed foods.
Which sort of gets into a supply issue, right? I know India has a big problem with post-harvest losses. We lose a lot of our own fruit.
A huge problem. We don't produce enough high-quality fruit for our own demand. So importing some raw fruit, that makes a certain amount of economic sense. But if additional products becomes a loophole for processed, sugary American junk food to flood the market, that changes the entire health conversation.
We'll circle back to the health stuff because that's a big part of the cultural point. But first, what does India get out of this? If we're lowering tariffs on their wine and nuts, what are they giving us?
Well, you have to look at the history here. When the U.S. put on those earlier tariffs, they hit some really labor-intensive sectors in India. Hard.
We're talking textiles, leather, footwear.
Seafood, yeah. And these are sectors that employ millions of people.
Right.
And unlike, say, high-tech, we couldn't just find another buyer overnight. For textiles and leather, when the U.S. slapped on a 50% tariff, it was punishment. It really hurt.
So does this new framework fix that?
It helps. The U.S. is saying it'll lower those tariffs down to 18%.
18 is definitely better than 50.
It is. But it's not zero. And the tariffs on steel and aluminum will be, and this is the quote, slowly removed. Again, that word, slowly. It's vague.
But wait, what about the retaliation clause? I read about that. Doesn't that protect India? If they change their mind, we can change ours.
On paper, yes. It sounds totally fair. It gives India the right to hit back. But the analysis is very skeptical about this.
Why? If we have the power, why wouldn't we use it?
It's all about leverage. Think about it. If the U.S. raises tariffs on our textiles, and India retaliates by raising tariffs on, say, American almonds, who hurts more? The U.S. economy can handle a dip in almond sales. Can the Indian textile industry handle a total collapse in its biggest market?
Probably not.
That's the asymmetry. The argument is that India rarely retaliates effectively because we just can't afford the trade war. So that retaliation clause, it's a nice sword to hang on the wall, but we're probably too afraid to ever actually swing it.
So it's theoretical power, not practical power.
Exactly.
Speaking of power and big numbers, we have to talk about the headline figure. $500 billion. The news is India is committing to buy $500 billion worth of goods in 5 years. Sounds astronomical.
It's a headline grabber, for sure. It's designed to shock and awe. But this is where you have to, look past the ticker tape and actually check the receipts.
So this isn't $500 billion of new money.
Not exactly. The analysis breaks it down really well. That number includes energy and, this is the crucial part, civil aviation.
Boeing.
Now think back. Air India already placed those massive orders with Boeing. That was huge news a while ago.
Yeah, I remember that. It was all over.
So the way aviation billing works is you pay the big chunks of money when the planes are actually delivered. So those orders were placed in the past, but the planes are scheduled for delivery over the next 5 years.
Wait. So they're counting the bill for old orders as part of this new commitment?
Precisely. It's basically accounting magic. A huge slice of that $500 billion is just us paying for stuff we already bought. It makes the trade framework look massive, and it makes U.S. negotiators look like they secured this huge win. But the actual new pressure to buy American might be a lot less than that number makes it sound.
That's such a critical detail. It changes the whole feeling from a massive new spending spree to just settling up the tab.
It really does. But while the money part has some smoke and mirrors, there is one part of this framework that is deadly serious.
The oil.
The oil.
Yeah, this is the part of the analysis that made me stop and reread it. They use incredibly strong language here. National humiliation.
It's a harsh take, but let's look at what's actually described. There was an executive order on February 6th, and it specifically targets India's oil purchases.
And the requirement is basically an audit.
It's more than that. The U.S. wants to ensure that no Russian oil is in our supply chain at all.
Yeah.
Directly or indirectly. They want to monitor the transactions.
The analysis calls this a master-slave dynamic, which feels intense, but when you think about it, imagine someone coming into your business and demanding to see all your invoices to make sure you didn't buy from the wrong supplier.
That's the invasion of sovereignty. The analysis is flagging. It's a dictated term. The U.S. monitors, and India has to comply. And if we don't, those tariffs we just talked about could snap right back.
But here's what gets me. India isn't the only country buying Russian oil. China buys a ton of it. Does the U.S. demand to audit China's books?
No. And that comparison is what's so fascinating. China buys huge amounts, but a lot of it is through pipelines, which are much harder for the U.S. to track than ships on the open sea. But more importantly, the U.S. sees China as a peer competitor.
A fair fight.
Exactly. They know they can't just walk into Beijing and dictate terms. With India, the dynamic is different. And the analysis is actually quite critical of India here. It says we sort of put ourselves in this position By not building enough leverage. The document points to strategic failures, like liquidating our investments in Iran's Chabahar port because we were scared of U.S. sanctions, or failing to build up our own strategic oil reserves when prices were low.
So because we didn't build our own buffer, we have to play by their rules now.
Right. We have very little leverage. Most of our trade is in U.S. dollars, which makes us vulnerable to their banking system. So agreeing to this monitoring is, in the view of this analysis, a surrender of autonomy. It comes right back to your intro, I will decide where you buy your petrol from.
It's incredibly sobering. You know, we think of trade deals as just spreadsheets and tariffs. But the analysis takes this really interesting turn into soft power, specifically food.
This is where trade stops being abstract and starts showing up on your plate. It's not just about economics, it's about culture. And the argument is that the U.S. uses trade to reshape how people see their own traditions.
There's this story in the notes about coconut oil. It's just the perfect example of gaslighting.
It really is. The analysis reminds us that back around 2014, health experts, mostly influenced by Western standards, started aggressively demonizing coconut oil in India.
I remember that. Suddenly it was poison. It was clogging your arteries.
Right. And this is an oil Indians have been using for thousands of years. But the narrative completely shifted. Why? The analysis argues it was to clear the market for canola and other vegetable oils the West wanted to export, discredit the local product to sell the foreign one.
But then, and this is the part that is just wild, a few years later, the West decides coconut oil is cool again.
The superfood pivot, suddenly it's 2018, you walk into a fancy grocery store in New York, and coconut oil is 5 times the price. It's in smoothies, it's in hair masks, it's a miracle product.
So the pattern is, demonize the local culture, sell them your stuff, wait a few years, and then sell their own culture back to them at a massive markup.
That's the cycle, and the analysis warns that this framework could accelerate that same cycle with other foods, specifically breakfast.
The cereal war.
Well, think about the marketing shift we've all seen. Traditional Indian breakfasts, idli, poha, upmar, are fresh cooked meals. But for decades, advertising has branded them as heavy, old-fashioned. The modern choice, cereal.
A complete meal in a bowl.
Right. But the analysis just calls it out. Most of that cereal is, in their words, processed junk. It's high sugar, highly processed. But the marketing machine, and now, social media, reels, influencers, it convinces people that eating American-style processed food is a sign of status.
It's that hamper culture. If you've got imported snacks, you've made it.
Exactly. And if this trade framework lowers tariffs on additional products, which could easily include these processed foods, it just makes them cheaper and more available. The analysis basically warns that we're importing health problems. We're trading away nutrition for a brand image.
It's a harsh critique. It's like saying we're letting our plates be colonized.
And we're paying for the privilege.
So if we zoom out from all this, we have a vague economic deal, a headline number that's inflated, an invasive monitoring system, and a cultural shift that undermines local tradition. It's a pretty bleak picture. But who's to blame? Is the U.S. just the bad guy here?
This is maybe the most important part of the whole analysis. It's very critical of the U.S., sure. It calls them not our friend. But it places the ultimate blame squarely on India.
On an internal failure.
Yes. The argument is fundamental. You cannot be truly sovereign if you are dependent.
Dependent on them for what, exactly?
For the basics of power. If you have to go to another country with your hands out asking for missile engines, for tanks, for high-tech machinery, if you rely on them for your own defense, you are not really in control of your own destiny.
The analysis has that great line. You don't become a superpower just by saying the word.
That's the core of it. You become one by doing the hard, boring work. Building industrial capacity, fixing your internal problems. The analysis even contrasts the mindset in India with the one in China.
And I'm guessing China comes out looking a bit more focused.
The argument is that China has this single-minded focus on building national strength, real, hard power. Whereas in India, the analysis suggests we're often too distracted. It mentions a culture of cheating the system or creating chaos or just complaining instead of actually building the economic muscle we'd need to be able to say no.
So it's the difference between looking strong and actually being strong.
Exactly. The U.S. is playing the long game. They're securing a market and making sure India stays in their orbit, but not as an equal. The fault, according to this document, lies with every level of the Indian system that failed to build the strength required to demand equality.
Because if we were strong enough, We would never accept a framework where another country monitors our oil purchases.
Precisely. No one monitors China's oil because they can't. They monitor India's because they can. It's a simple function of leverage.
So this framework isn't the cause of the problem, it's a symptom.
It's a mirror. It just reflects the reality of where the power actually lies today. The conclusion of this analysis is that this isn't a partnership. It's a dynamic where we've allowed ourselves to be pushed around because we haven't done the work to be truly independent.
It really brings us full circle, back to that fridge analogy at the start.
It does. We're ending on the idea that if you want to control what's in your own fridge, you have to own the house. You can't just be a tenant in the global economy.
That's a powerful way to put it.
So to recap what we've unpacked today, we have a framework, not a deal, full of vague promises. We have a $500 billion number that's propped up by old airplane orders. We have an intrusive system checking up on our energy security.
And a cultural shift that's pushing foreign processed food over local nutrition. And underneath it all, a massive wake-up call about what real sovereignty actually requires.
Which leaves us, and you, with a very uncomfortable question.
What's that?
When we look at this agreement, are we really seeing a handshake between partners? Or are we seeing the evidence that one side is still deciding what goes in the other's fridge?
And are we okay with that? That's the question we'll leave you with. A lot to think about next time you reach for those California almonds or scroll past a breakfast reel.
Indeed. It's always deeper than it looks on the surface.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.